So far we have talked about evolution only. However, the term involution is necessary as well for the understanding of the whole course of development. The development of the eternal individuality takes place in cycles of involution and evolution, as is illustrated by this sketch taken from the Mahatma letters. We call the descending line involution and the ascending line evolution. At the beginning of the cycle, at the highest point of the circle, the spirit descends into matter. Matter is at first very similar to spirit, that is, all subtle and ethereal, predominantly spiritual, hardly material. You may remember we had already said, in reality there is no difference at all between spirit and matter. There is just the one and only substance called spirit matter. It is solid and material in a state of low vibration, and ethereal and spiritual in a state of high vibration. Just like ice, with increasing warming, turns first to water and then to steam. At the beginning of the circle of development, the spirit matter was in such a state of highest vibration. There was an age in which matter, as we know it, did not as yet exist, for it was not yet evolved to its present state of density. It was far more tenuous and elastic, finer in quality, and of a much higher rate of vibration. In the course of the involution of the spirit, during the first descending half of the circle, matter becomes harder and harder. Denser and denser bodies are being formed. The initial spiritual knowledge gives way to intellectual cognition. The monad forgets its divine origins and loses its higher spiritual senses and skills. At the lowest point of the circle, the descent of spirit into matter, the involution, is completed. Material and intellectual development have reached their peak. The spirit has attained its deepest point of immersion into matter. That means the beings standing there are intelligent, but more or less unspiritual. At this turning point starts the second, the ascending half of the circle, the evolution. The spirit slowly frees itself from matter by spiritualizing it. Thus matter is becoming finer again. The spirituality increases and the materiality decreases. Spiritual knowledge grows and replaces the intellectual cognition. The experienced swimmer springs from the heights into the depths of the water. He feels daring and joy at returning to the surface. So too the conscious spirit plunges into carnate matter in order to rise again to the mountain heights. Thus the upper half at the beginning and at the end of the circle is governed by spirit and spirituality, and the lower half by matter and intellect. At the end of the circle, the spirit has returned to its highest point. The matter in which it is enclosed is again of the highest vibration, fine and ethereal. The entire future is founded upon the return of coarse matter into the domain of light. It is the God in him crying out to the God who created him for readmission to the Garden of Eden, the state of equilibrium, perfection, from which he was driven by divine law, in order that he might return, clothed in immortality. Once on the peak, a new circle of development can begin. Everything starts again from scratch, once more the same development. Yes, but from a higher starting point, we continue enriched by all the experience, accumulations and accomplishments of the whole previous round. On that basis, we may rise even higher in a new circle of development. The entire evolution proceeds in the form of a spiral, eternally and infinitely growing. A new circle always begins one level higher than the starting point of the previous cycle. All that exists grows spirally. The spiral structure is contained in all currents. One can see the same spiral foundation in all existence. It is important that you recognize this principle. The development again and again touches the same points and goes through the same phases, but in each case in more depth, on a higher stage than before. The law of the spiral is the basis of cosmos. This is confirmed not only by physics, but also by evolution. It is sufficient to cite the simple example of a screw in order to understand the movement of evolution. The more threads there are on the screw, the better it serves its purpose. Similarly, in evolution, it is useful that the spiral has many turns. People usually are amazed that human consciousness appears to experience again and again the same achievements and the same failures. The question arises, why must one return if it is possible to move forward? But this returning is only illusory. Evolution never returns to previous points, but passes above them. Not only we humans, but also minerals, plants and animals go through this cyclical, spiral-like process. Even our planet, the Earth, parallel to the human cycle, goes the same way, from an ethereal beginning down to cooling off and hardening, and back up again to spiritualization. Each and every one of us undergoes a corresponding development. As a child, in the first 7 years of our life, we are still very spiritual in the sense that the soul determines our lives. We still have a connection to the upper world from which we just came. As a child, everything material was alien to you. You still lived largely in the world of the soul, in your own realm of fantasy. The soul requires several years to fully take possession of the body and to really enter the physical, earthly sphere. Then comes the time of sexuality, the building up of a material existence, the founding of a family, and the shaping of the earthly world. The material steps to the foreground, and the concerns of the soul into the background. Towards the end of our life, the material things lose their importance. The longing to live the life of the soul becomes ever greater. The earthly matters do not satisfy us anymore. We turn to spiritual tasks and pleasures. We prepare for the return to the spiritual world. For us, today, 7 cycles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, are recognizable from the unlimited course of evolution. The monad first goes through a mineral, then a plant, further an animal, and today through the 4th, the human earthly cycle. A monad which starts this 4th cycle, therefore, has previously run through the phases of a stone, a plant, and an animal, and has successfully completed the development of these lower species. Do I understand that correctly? I should have been a stone once. Yes, indeed, to put it bluntly. You, your true self, your eternal individuality, were once, millions of years ago, incarnated in the material shell of a stone. You were then embodied in a plant, and later in an animal, until your spirit has finally advanced so far as to be able to appear in the more complex and sophisticated body of a human being. This sketch shows the cycles 1 to 7. Only the 4th, the human cycle, takes place on Earth. All the other cycles are on other planets. Man comes from a lower planet. Once he has learned what he can learn here on Earth, he will continue his progress in the 5th cycle on a higher planet. In the 1st cycle, an ordinary pebble stone develops to a more spiritual mineral, for example, a crystal, which already grows and thus approaches the plant kingdom. In the 2nd vegetable cycle, grass develops to higher plants such as roses, orchids or trees, as well as forms of life representing the transition to the next cycle, the animal world. Simplest examples of the animal sphere, such as cockroaches or ants, in the third circle, grow into more spiritual, higher animals, such as dolphins, horses, dogs, or monkeys. They thus approach the level of human beings and thus get ready for the fourth cycle. The later fifth, sixth, and seventh cycles offer opportunities for development far beyond today's humanity, to creatures which will no longer be human beings, but God-man or overman. The duration of one cycle is about 4.3 billion years. Ahead of us lie the second half of the fourth cycle, or about 2 billion years, and then 3 times 4.3 billion years for the 3 cycles 5, 6, and 7. Thus, it will take about 15 billion years for our monads to return to the highest point of the circle. Once you understand this system, you realize modern man does not descend from today's monkeys. The monads of the monkeys living on Earth today are a whole cycle backwards compared to the monads of us humans, namely in their third, the animal cycle. Today's earthly monkeys will become something like human beings in their fourth cycle on a different planet. Then today's mankind will already be higher beings in their fifth cycle. The bodies of modern man's monads, however, were similar to monkeys in their previous animal cycle on a lower planet. Each of the 7 cycles is divided into 7 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at the example of cycle 4. Within a cycle, the process already described is repeated. The cycle begins at the highest point with round 1 and an ethereal, spiritual, almost immaterial being. In rounds 2 and 3, the monads is getting more and more material, reaches the lowest point of the cycle in round 4, in order then to spiritualize itself again in rounds 5, 6, and 7. Our current fourth earthly cycle started with its round 1 about 1.9 billion years ago. The monads, which at this time came to the ethereal Earth from other planets, first had to go again through the mineral, plant and animal development, this time under the particular conditions of the Earth. That took about 300 million years, so that the actual human development on Earth began about 1.6 billion years ago. Today we are at the bottom of the fourth cycle in round 4. Here the physical development of man and of the earth takes place. The creatures of the earlier rounds 1, 2 and 3 were ethereal models, not physical men as we know them today.